There's a book in here somewhere. I just don't know if I'm the right guy to write it. But a lot of people, a lot of my friends at the time, when you turn 45 to 50, you have this nagging sense inside of you that you say, maybe in your words, maybe you don't really think of it this way, but I said, I've been working 25 years. And when I thought about working for 25 years when I was 22, I didn't think I'd be in a place where I was this frustrated. Number two, not getting not creating, not doing what I wanted to do. I feel hemmed in. I feel collared in. This sucks.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Made to Matter podcast. I'm your host, Adam Landrum, and we help men in their second half live with more purpose, more fulfillment, and do work that really matters. And I'm excited today to have our guest, Walker McKay, on the show, hailing from Columbia, South Carolina, if I'm correct, right, Walker?
Yes, sir. Right on. Famously hot.
All right, famously hot, and it is. I'm in Greenville, South Carolina, just up the road, and it is hot. It even has a reputation for us to be hot. So, So Walker, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself to get some context, and then we'll dive into your story, which I'm excited to do.
Well, thank you, Adam, for inviting me on the show. I appreciate you very much. Y'all that are listening are getting kind of a gift for free with Adam's information that he's sharing with y'all. So pay him back by liking the podcast, following the podcast, recommending it, sharing it with other people that you know. That's the best way you can say thank you for the effort, money, and time that Adam is spending. I'm Walker McKay. I own a company called No BS Sales. I help companies build better sales teams. I have a podcast, the No BS Sales School podcast. I post on LinkedIn almost daily. But my job is, I see my job as helping people kind of live into into who they can truly be in sales. And we're all kind of in sales and in one form or another. And there's lots of ways. Lots of things we can learn from it, and lots of ways we can get better as being human beings.
All right, great. All right, so have you been in sales your whole life, or what did that look like?
Yeah, so technically I've been in sales almost my whole life. I started off in the banking business right out of college, and was a loan officer, and I ran a branch. And I lasted about 18 months. And either I quit or they fired me. I don't remember which. I wasn't suited to be a 22-year-old banker. And I went in the commercial real estate business. And from that point on, I've been on 100% commission since I was probably 23 years old.
Oh,
As a friend of mine said, when I say the word salary, what you probably think is what you eat with chicken wings and blue cheese. And he's about right. So, yeah, so I guess I've been in sales that whole time, from commercial real estate to I opened my own commercial real estate advisory shop, and then I got into actual sales training, and then I started my own company.
Okay, great. And when did you start your own company?
It was 2014, late 2013, early 2014.
Okay, so what, 12, 11 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so and how old were you when you started your own company?
I was 48, okay. 49 probably is when that happened, around that time.
All right. So that's well, would you agree that that's a later time than most people start their own, and that's really your first thing you started?
Yeah. Well, I had a commercial real estate advisory firm that I had for a couple of years that I really loved, but I'd hired this coach to help me figure out how to sell. Of course, I didn't need any help with that. I was great at sales, I could talk to anybody and had lots of friends, as the old saying goes. But I hired this coach, and immediately I became engaged in the real psychology of selling and why people do what they do and why people buy and how salespeople screwed it up. And I just was fascinated, and it really changed my life and the things I learned about myself. And I was like, and he called me one day and said, "Hey, will you come work with me? I know you've got your own thing going, but you're getting what I'm putting down, and you've already referred me 50 people. I think you know how to sell this stuff. Can you come be a part of my team?" And it was just him. And I really had never even thought about it as a business, quite frankly. It was kind of dumb of me. And so I said, sure, it sounded like fun. And so I jumped over at about age 30, 35, 36, maybe, I don't remember how, 1999, whenever that was. So anyway, I worked with him for 11 or 12 years. I loved it. I let our relationship go during that time. He was my mentor, my coach. Don't ever go work for your mentor, your coach. You know, you get behind the scenes and you see that things aren't as slick as you thought they were and that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I realized I was bitching and complaining and moaning and that I needed to do something about it.
Okay.
And so making plenty of money, it was easy, cashing it in. I loved what I was doing. But I had some concerns. I had a 3-year non-compete. I just built a big, gigantic, I say big, gigantic, it was 4,000 square feet. It was a really nice house. I'd stretched to do it. This was just after 2012 when I was trying to sell my other house. I still owned it at the time. So I had, in effect, I won't say 4 mortgages, but I had at least 2 mortgages and 2 second mortgages to make everything work. And I was struggling even on the money I was making. But I said, I just can't go another day like this. My partner and I weren't getting along. It's very passive aggressive. Anyway, so I talked to my wife about it and she was very supportive and said, do what you got to do. And so the funny thing to me, Adam, and I think I'm going beyond the scope of your question. I sat down, was going to have lunch with a client of mine who I'd had for 4 or 5 years. And I wasn't going to tell anybody until I told my partner. I didn't want to look for a job. I felt like that would be basically cheating on him to go do something outside of that. And I wasn't going to tell anybody until I talked with him. And I sat down with this guy who was a client of mine. He ran a company and he said, greeted me the best way. And if you ever want to mess with your friends, go, God, you look like shit. Can I say that on your password? On your podcast? Yep. Can I say that bad word? You won't bleep it out.
You can say bad words.
Okay. He said, you look like shit, which is what I used to do to people just to catch them off guard. And all of a sudden I couldn't hold back. And I was like, I'm miserable. I got to quit my job. This sucks. And I said, there's so much passive aggressive between us. And I said, it's 50% his fault and 50% my fault. And I just can't stay there anymore. I look up and he's giving me the stop sign. I said, what? He said, it's 100% your fault.
Oh.
I said, okay, I believe you. Tell me why. And he said, if you blame him for 50% of the problem, you'll be mad at the wrong person for the rest of your life. He said, you own that you screwed up that relationship, that you didn't tend it, that you didn't take care of it. And he said, he can do whatever he wants to, but because you can't control it, you need to own 100%. And all of a sudden, everything inside of me shifted. And I said, wow. Oh my God, you're right. And I said, I said, how in the hell, you're younger than me, 10 years younger. He said, how the hell did you learn that? He goes, from you. So the point was, sometimes, you got to have someone point out your own lessons, but I have found that in my life, the places where I have pivoted and gone to much better things came when somebody called me out for the excuses I was making. Okay. And so when my whole mind shifted, literally at that lunch, I can still remember the table we were sitting at, I was able to go to see my old business partner 2 hours later. And I went in and sincerely apologized for being such an ass, for being passive aggressive, for the things that I'd let him down on, and told him the only way I know to fix this was his business, was for me to leave. And we were partners, but it was his business. He invited me into it.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not here to negotiate a better deal. I'm not here to make something different. I said, I respect you too much, for you to come back and think I should come back. I said, that's not the way I'm doing this. And so we ended relatively on decent terms, but I had a 3-year non-compete.
Oh, okay.
And and the commercial real estate business, which was my past, I tell people it was like a beautiful girlfriend, a fictitious, beautiful girlfriend I had in college. It was fun and she was wild as hell and it was great. And I look back and think, damn, that was fun. But she was not very good for me. So same with commercial real estate at the time. So,
okay.
I didn't know what I was going to do.
So you were, so you had the lunch, you get this guide, who was a client, give you your own advice. And then that afternoon, like 2 hours later, I mean, you pivoted on the spot and basically went and resigned. You got 4 mortgages in total. Kids? You guys have kids?
2 kids in private school.
Oh, in private school. Okay. So you have 6 mortgages. And
maybe my timing is wrong. Maybe the other house had just sold or something. Still, my total mortgage debt was like $5,000 a month.
Right. Okay. So
And
you got,
I had $50,000 in savings.
and you have a non-compete. All right. So what? So, all right. So keep going. So what happens?
So I said, I knew the world would come to me and offer me great positions. And I said, I'm not going to make any decisions for 30 days. I'm just going to hang out and see what the world brings me. It brought me a puppy, another mouth to feed, which I loved. It And I wandered around, and a lot of people called me and said, man, congratulations, or way to go, or what the hell are you doing? And I was like, yeah, all this attention. Then the attention starts to die off. And nobody called and offered me a job. Like, hey, what are you going to do? What do you think you're going to do? You should do, and nothing. And so you should start your own company. I said, well, I would, but I've got a non-compete on what I know I'm good at. So anyway, an old client of mine called me and said, you've been teaching me sales management training for a couple of years. I'd rather somebody else do it. I can't afford to pay you full time. Will you do it part time? I was like, okay. I don't know. I said, I've never really managed a sales team, right? I've just trained it, which is what they tell you about trainers, right? If you can't do, you train.
Yeah.
And so I was really sales training. I got management training. That was theory. But so I took the job because I needed it. And he paid me a retainer every month. And then miraculously, somebody else called. Same thing. Hey, I heard you're doing this. Can you help me with my team? And then I realized, okay, there's a business here. And I could make a decent monthly amount of money. The correct number of clients I could handle with what I thought I was charging was about 4, and I could do that. And so the problem is what I teach my clients now is I had anybody that would hire me in that situation is part-time sales manager. We call it, instead of part-time, we call it fractional VP of sales, right?
Yeah.
They had problems. They had big problems, right? And either in their job, and I told them their job was to get me fired. Let's get things up and running. You hire somebody full-time. I don't want to be full-time. Let's go. But oftentimes, or the companies that I chose to work with, the companies that I said yes to, there were problems deeper than sales. But I was the VP of sales and I was there to solve things.
Okay.
And so over the next 6 months, over the next almost 20 months, I would get a client, I'd work with them for a while, and I'd have 2, I'd have 3, and I'd have 4 for about a day, which is when my cash flow was just right. And then one would leave, another would leave, and I was back down to nothing. I was chasing like this, and it sucked. It was a terrible business model. I wasn't good at it. It was bad. And a friend of mine called and said, why don't you go back into training? I don't remember the months, but I had like 6 months left from my non-compete. So I said, I got 6 months left from my non-compete. And he said, it'll take you 6 months to get your shit together. And he goes, why else don't you want to do this? I said, I don't need money for a training room. He said, I can help you with that. And he said, why else? I said, I don't know how the hell to start it. And he goes, I can help you start it. I can help you prepare. You can use, this is 2016, maybe. He said, there's this thing called Zoom. Yeah. You can do training over that. I think at the time it was like, whatever, $50 a month or something to use Zoom. I was like, what the hell is that? Anyway, so once again, he said, any other excuses you want to make about not starting your own business? If you don't want to do it, don't do it. And I was like, happen again. And so I started, and I thought I could scale this thing up in a year or 2. I wanted to serve the population like I was in my 20s. I wanted to give young people the training and the coaching that I wish I had gotten when I was in my 20s in commercial real estate. It wasn't really, I didn't have access to it if there was a thing.
So your motive, you had good motives, strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I thought I could scale this thing and be at what the time seemed like a lot of money, $15,000 a month. Thought I could be there in about 6 months, and I got about $5,000 installed. And probably a year before, my wife and I had long conversations, and she said, we either have to sell the house or we got to pull the kids out of private school. And so we made the choice to sell the house, knowing that was, if we kept the house, that was to protect our ego. But if we kept the children in private school, which we loved, then that was to protect them. And that was the most important thing. So we sold the house. We moved to a little rental house, a rental cottage, we call it, is a euphemism. It was about a third of the size of the house we built. And we lived there for 3 years and kind of scraped. And my wife got a job, and we were just kind of back and forth as my business slowly built. And about 6 months in, one of my clients called and said, my company has 10 salespeople. You ever trained companies? I was like, yeah, I used to do that and it worked. So I quit, like so many things. And he said, well, come talk to my boss. And so I went and talked to his boss, and all of a sudden I had a corporate client that was paying me, $7,000-8,000 a month.
Is that what you did with your mentor?
Yeah, before it. Yeah, that's what I did with his company. Yeah. We trained companies. I did individuals too, but I did companies. And so all of a sudden I was like, oh shit. And so I had a separate program for them. Then I picked up another. And anyway, it was up and down. Didn't know what I was doing. I was making it up as I went along. And one more quick side, I was really struggling, but there was this guy on Twitter at the time named Hank Norman. Nobody's heard of him before, or I had never heard of him before. He used to be big time producer on NBC, funny little guy, but he would put out videos every day on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And every single day, Hank Norman was talking to me.
Hmm.
With me. On his little video, he did 30-second clips and he described my life as an entrepreneur. He said, "You're struggling with this. He would say, do this because this is why. Do this because this is why. Do this." And I was like, how does this guy know me? And so I reached out on Twitter and talked to him a little bit. He was great. Enjoyed talking to him. And I said, so finally I came up and talked to my wife. I said, I got to fix this. I said, we're making enough money to survive, but this sucks. We'll never be able to buy a house again. Never be able to do what we want to do. And I said, I've got to go invest in, I got to go spend some money. She said, do what you got to do. She's great. And so I said, all right. I called Hank and I said, I don't care what it costs because I don't have any money anyway. I said, but I need to know what you know. I said, if I can talk to my audience, like you're talking to your audience, that'll be the keys to the kingdom. I said, and he said, all right, meet with me and my business partner. And I go talk to the business partner. And the first thing he did, he asked me a couple of questions. I don't remember exactly what they were. He said, you're not committed to fix it anyway. So I don't give a shit. And he hung up on me. He was from New York, shocker.
Yeah.
And so
this is the guy who set you up with the training room and the.
No. This is another guy before. He had helped me get this far, but he said, let's move forward. So I'm sorry. Time has elapsed.
Yes. Okay.
So Lee had helped me get to a certain spot, and then I needed somebody else to get to the next spot, the next level. And so I called Hank, and he put me in touch with he and Steve. Steve hangs up on me. I was like, oh, shit. And I thought I was mad at Steve for a while. And then I was like, you know what? He's right. I'm making excuses. I'm saying I live in Columbia, South Carolina. Nobody buys here. How do I get an audience? Nobody's going to buy from me, blah, blah, all this bullshit. And I called Hank back, and I said, I need another meeting with Steve. So he put me in touch with Steve, and I said, I will do whatever it takes, whatever you tell me. I don't care what it costs. I'm going to go borrow the money anyway. I don't care what it costs. And unfortunately, the bank will give me whatever I want. They trust me way too much. And so he gave me a number that was way less than I thought, way more than I had, way less than I thought. And he said, all right, do whatever I tell you. And that was, anyway, started making videos, started putting things out, started writing. He asked me to start a podcast. They showed me how to do that, how to use social media, how to speak to people on social media. And he worked me like a dog. And I didn't like the way that he talked to me because he was rude and obnoxious, and he would cut into me personally. I mean, he would make personal jabs when I didn't. One time I had a wedding I was going to that weekend, and he said, I want you to send me 50 of these things. And I said, man, I can't. I'm in a wedding this weekend. I'll get them to you by Tuesday. And he lit me on fire, Adam. Lit me on fire. And I was like, I hung up the phone. I said, all right, I went to the wedding, was in the wedding. I sent him 200 things overnight that I stayed up from 11 o'clock when I came home till 7 o'clock the next morning. I sent him 200 of these things he asked me to send him. Because I had to win. I had 2 kids, right? I had my wife who we wanted a bigger life. And so I don't know. God bless me. I got lucky. I wasn't going to give up. Things continued to happen. It was up and down as it is always.
Do you think Steve was saying like, this is really what it takes? I mean, this is, if you're going to make it, this is what it takes.
Yes. And he was the guy I needed for a while because I had to get out of my own self-pity. I had to get over myself, and I needed a voice like his. Now, after about a year, I got tired of being whipped like a dog. And there was the other guy, the guy I originally met, Hank, and I called Hank in that company. I was already paying him. And I said, I'd rather work with you. He said, okay, great. And Hank was more of a refiner, right? Steve put the building blocks down. I created a course, and all this stuff, had all this help from these guys. They were terrific. And then Hank helped me refine. He was much kinder, much more thoughtful. And that was where I was. That's what I needed next. And so from there, they forced me to make my material tight. They forced me to create systems, processes, not necessarily in my business. I do that on my own, but in my material and how I delivered things.
Okay.
And so I couldn't have got where I am. And so from there, after I moved on from them, ever since then, I've always had a coach who has challenged me, who's been able to look at the outside and say, why the hell are you doing that? What if, you need to be thinking of this a different way. And each has showed up out of nowhere when I needed them. And it's strange the way that happens with me.
So what, so it sounds like at this point in the story, you started getting traction.
Started getting traction, started getting more corporate gigs. I started getting invited to speak on more stages. And, my prices, I've been able to raise my prices as I go along. I've been able to be more discerning. It's probably 2 or 3 years ago, probably maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that the flywheel started turning,
Mhm.
and that my main financial goal for the first 4 years was pay your taxes in the quarter of that you made the income,
That they
right?
do.
That
Okay.
if I could do that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And then it's put X amount of money away, and then it's invest in your business X amount every month, invest in yourself, meaning retirement, all the other things every single month. And so I've been doing that. And I run my business. I won't say I run it leanly. I don't. I spend money on to write a book and do all these kind of things because that's what's helped me move forward. I'm sorry, I got off your question again.
So I have a couple clarifying questions, and I'm sure there's more to the story. But so how did you get so the non-compete? I'm surmising was like, you can't go do sales training for companies, and it sounded like you had 6 months left, but you started. Am I understanding
It
it? You
took
started,
me a while. Go ahead, sorry.
yeah, you started planning that business, but not actually doing it. Okay. And so what happened when that non-compete was done? Did you celebrate? Did you contact your mentor and say, "Here I come," or
No, he heard that he called me originally when he heard that I was doing when I was doing sales management training or doing whatever the VP of sales stuff, and I told him I wasn't competing with him. And then 3 years later, enough was enough, and he would hear or he wouldn't hear. It didn't really matter. He was kind of out of my life. I started calling some of my friends. Start with the old friends and family thing. I reached out to some old clients. I reached out to people like that, and I just kind of started. And I said, I don't even know what it is. I don't know what to call it. I mean, literally. And my friend Lee said, "What do you want to call it?" And I said, what do you want to name this thing to be?" And I said, I said, what I want to call it is no bullshit. Because that's what I want to teach people is how to live their life, not really live their life. I'm not a life coach, but how to sell. Well, there's so much bullshit between buyers and sellers that goes on in the
Yeah.
world. It's just, there's so much bullshit and confusion. And I said, I want to show people it's a better way and that you can be transparent and that you can be kind and you can also say no a lot and still be professional. You don't have to be a happy-go-lucky, has your mom and them conversation, be everybody's friend. I wanted to be, how do you make yourself a professional salesperson with empathy and with transparency and with strength? And so that was what I wanted to deliver to people. And I'd created a system over those last 3 years to be able to do that.
Yeah. Okay. And it sounds like when you tell your story, like you didn't know, like this was new. You didn't know what to do, how to do it, but you had been doing it for like 11 years. It sounds like you're doing something very similar, maybe with more your flavor, but it's still the basis of the same type of company, is it not?
Well, so it is similar, right? I am doing sales training for companies, and for individuals, and I do coach individuals too. But I did not want to just copy what they had. I see the value in a sales process.
Yeah.
I understood the Sandler process is very good. There were things I did not like about
I
it.
think that's the first time we said Sandler. Do you want to unpack what Sandler is real quick for the audience, or?
Yeah, sure. Sandler Training is a national franchise company that does sales training, founded by David Sandler in the 60s. It's great stuff. It's really good. It's where I cut my teeth.
Okay.
And they've got franchisees all over the country and I think all over the world. And I've got a lot of friends that are there.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to get sued, number one, and I didn't want to, and I wanted there were some things about that I thought could be different. And one of the books that I read, you've already referred to it, maybe without even knowing, is Story Brand.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I read in Story Brand was the difference between a hero and a guide. And that resonated with me. I'd been doing my training for a year and all of a sudden I was like, that's the difference.
Yeah.
I want to show, that's the words I didn't have, was to show people how to be the guide and not the hero, to not make it about yourself. And that to me is where kind of everything else opened up and started to make sense for me, where I could come from that was a different place than where I was training before.
Okay. And in our pre-discussion before we hit record, you were telling me about this happened in midlife, and you had a different word for crisis. And I'm gonna put a pin in that real quickly, but it sounded like your reaction was a little abrupt, like you hit a breaking point and I'm not gonna say you snapped, but you're like, I can't take it anymore. So I guess unpack what you were feeling, on that day when you had the lunch
Sure.
and what
Sure.
like what was going on?
So you probably haven't noticed, Adam, but I've got ADHD. I know that's a shocker to you, right? But I've got this impulsive go, 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 go thing, squirrel kind of thing. And I just kept, I, um, I like to control what I'm doing. I like to control kind of and how we treat people and how and I found that um, I couldn't control the way I didn't like some of the things that were going on. My old partner's a great guy. He really is. But he just made some decisions that weren't the same as I would make, which is fine. Again, there were nothing unethical or illegal, anything like that. Just was different than I would have done it. And for whatever reason, that got under my skin and under my skin and under my skin. And I started to realize there were other friends of mine who had the same thing. They were corporate lawyers, or they were doctors, or they were in sales, or they were doing whatever. But usually in this period of age 45 to 50.
Hmm.
And I was probably 48, but I really had strong pangs of frustration at 47. And finally, I don't remember what happened, but something happened, and I was like, I'm out. I've had it. I'm done. I made up my mind. And ADHD thing, and I did what I pulled the ripcord, right? And the damn seat jumped up, and I parachuted down, hoping I would land somewhere on land that would make sense. I just knew things would work out. But I realized I had something that was not uncommon, which I call the 47-year-old problem. And
Yeah.
like I say, I'm sure that there's a book in here somewhere. I just don't
Yeah.
know if I'm the right guy to write it. But a lot of people, a lot of my friends at the time, when you turn 45 to 50, you have this nagging sense inside of you that you say, maybe in your words, maybe you don't really think of it this way, but I said, I've been working 25 years. And when I thought about working for 25 years when I was 22, I didn't think I'd be in a place where I was this frustrated. Number two, not getting not creating, not doing what I wanted to do. I feel hemmed in. I feel collared in. This sucks. And I realized I had two choices. I could do what a lot of my friends did and just put their head down and say, I can work 20 more years. I make great money. It sucks, but in 20 more years, I'll be able to live my life how I want to do it and whatever. Or you can say, screw this. I'm going to start over.
Hmm.
So I picked path two, which I don't recommend to most other people. I don't think that's a wise thing for your finances or your family or anything else. But it was the right thing for me. I can look back now 14 years and say.
Yeah.
So this 47-year-old problem is you look and you say, I'm not where I want to be. This sucks. I hate it. And it's something that happens. Some people call it a midlife crisis. I called it midlife clarity
Hmm.
because it was, all right, I'm now disentangled from my excuse, right? And my excuse was, this is holding me back. This is keeping me from being who I want to be. This is keeping me from,
Yeah.
okay, big boy, now that's gone. What are you going to do?
Right. So so part of the clarity was taking what I'd call radical responsibility. Okay. All right. So and then you thought so camel broke the straw, the straw that broke the camel's back. You don't even remember what it was, but it happened. And you thought too that I'm just recounting your story. You thought too is like, I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna sort of hit my stride, no problem.
Whatever that is.
And then that took a lot longer and a lot more work than you realized.
Yeah. A lot more risk for my family, a lot more risk for me, a lot more pain on my family, a lot more a lot of things that, harder than I ever imagined.
Now, for you, did it doing your own thing, do you think, and looking back, is that what you really wanted that you didn't have?
It's a really great question. I think through self-awareness, and I think when I started realizing these things that I made as excuses early in my life, that the only way I was going to be able to truly find satisfaction, the only way that I was going to live my life without having somebody else to point the finger at, because I always find myself doing that, right?
Yeah.
If there's somebody else to blame, I'm going to blame them. And so I had to cut all that away. And now there's nobody else to blame but me. And I take responsibility for every single decision, every mistake that I make, and I make them all the time. Everything that happens inside my business with the help of a lot of other people is what we have built here because of the decisions, good and bad, that I've made.
Yeah. It sounds like this is a very strong value in you, and like you wanted to be in charge of your own destiny. Whether it ended up bad or not, at least you could say, It was
I
on
gave
me.
them my everything. Yep.
Yeah.
And I somehow knew that working for somebody, my heart of hearts, I thought if you get some great VP of sales job, it means you're going to be on an airplane, you're going to be gone the whole time. Your life's going to be tough and owned by somebody else. And so I think ultimately, subconsciously, I was leading myself to rid myself of all my other options. And so I started on my own thing. And I think a lot of people, if I'd been working for somebody else, they might have made they would have made decisions for me much differently. And that's
Yeah.
not what I wanted. And even if I didn't get a job, I knew deep down inside, I would figure it out. Whatever happened, I would figure it out. And whatever path direction I went, I would figure it out.
Yeah.
So that was kind of what drove me.
Okay. And there's a lot of confidence under there that and your
That
capability
was
and
challenged every day.
yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't even in my capability. It was my belief that in the world I could find a place.
Uh-huh.
It was my belief that not that I was like so great or any of that kind of stuff. Really, it came from more of I believe more of a humility that there's a place out there that I will fit and I'm going to find it. And I knew I needed help to get there. And so I reached out to people. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and you knew where you were, that wasn't it.
Yeah.
Right.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
Wasn't
So it also sounded, are you familiar with the E-Myth, the book, The
Yeah.
E-Myth?
Yeah.
Okay. So it also sounded like that you went on your own and you had to learn how to be a business owner. You had to learn how to be an entrepreneur.
I created a job for myself, as they said so brilliantly in the E-Myth.
Yes.
And I had to figure out from there, I had to get enough revenue to pay somebody to help me. And then I had to get enough revenue to pay somebody to help me do something else, get enough revenue to help somebody pay me to do something else. And so I have I have 6 or 7 people right now. They're not, a couple of them are full time, but most of them are part time, and they help me for where I am right now and how to help me to get to the next level.
Right.
And so, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, for the audience who may or may not know about the E-Myth, I find about half of the people I talk to have heard of it. It's a sort of a cult classic entrepreneur. It's on some of the entrepreneurial myth. And I think the example he uses is if a plumber goes into business for himself, he's no longer a plumber. He's now a business owner. And that's what it sounds like you found out. But also, Walker, what I admire you is the humility in terms of when people gave you feedback, you acted on it, even when it's feedback you didn't like. You knew that you needed Steve, the tough guy. I like how you said you needed him for a season. You didn't want him forever.
Yeah. And I look at that with the people in my business life. It has been very, and I tell them, I need you for a particular place where I am right now. There may come a time when I need something else. And I have been, constantly looking at, all right, who can give me, who can get me the best that I can afford that I can find right now. Right. And so far, I've stayed too long with some, I've missed some others, and anyway, just do what you can.
Yeah. Cool. So how long, so from the day you quit, and I paused to ask this question because it's a tricky one, to the day you felt that you made it, if there has been that day is what I'm laughing at. How long did that take?
I'll tell you when I'm there. I'll call you.
Okay.
I'm in continual transformation. And I know it sounds hokey, but I read this thing even a couple of weeks ago that says, to become, to get what you want, you have to become the person that can handle that.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I wanted this 10 years ago, 12 years ago, but I wasn't the person that could handle this. So I'm somebody who believes in continually learning. My father taught me so much. I remember he was 93. He was sitting in his mountain cabin in North Carolina. I was visiting with him. We had a wonderful relationship. He's one of my dearest friends. He was reading a book. He died at 95, and he was reading a book at age 93 of the history of South Carolina by his friend Walter Edgar. And I teased him. I said, Dad, why are you reading that damn book? I said, you're probably on page 2. I mean, you've lived through 465 of those pages yourself. And he looked at me and he said, there's so much to learn. It amazes me how much there is to learn. I was like, you're 93. That's awesome. What a message. And so
beautiful mindset. Yeah.
So I struggle every day. I make dumb decisions every day. But I'm also know that, and I don't want to do this, but if I lost it all tomorrow, I could build back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've got the scars. I've got the thick skin. I've got the, I don't care what you think of me, which is, I think is so important for business owners or entrepreneurs who are trying to grow, is to be able to truly know that your opinion of me is not my business.
Hmm.
And I think having that mindset, and I don't mean be a psychopath, but like I have a very tight group of people, like 3, including my wife,
Yeah.
who can impact me emotionally.
Yeah.
But beyond that, if my prospects don't like me, if my clients don't like me, if somebody sees this and says, what a douchebag, I don't care.
Right.
And that's been a big, long lesson for me,
Yeah, that's
because I
awesome.
was
I
not
think
that way.
there's a great book out there called The Courage to be Disliked, which I think is that sentiment of like you be you and let people have their own decision or and what's her name? I forget her name, but
Oh yeah, Mel Robbins.
yeah, Mel Robbins or yeah, let them be. So yeah, part of part of my experience in my previous life, up and up agency, 22 years, I think I felt like I made it around year 19, and made it meant I wasn't worried about making payroll that month.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah.
it
No, I
was
get.
like finally I could I sort of trust the system, and that our incoming leads were sufficient, and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. So
Um,
I'm about there right now with that.
yeah.
And I don't know I don't know what my business will look like in 5 years. I turned 60 last week.
Oh, congrats.
Hope I can do this another 10 years or so, as long as I can stay healthy and relevant and I'm having fun. I'd like to keep doing this. Um, but I took some financial losses. We had to sell our house. And so I lost a lot of equity. I lost a lot of the money that I had saved.
Mm,
And so finally getting back up to, almost where I was, which is great. So I've still got that fear behind me,
yeah.
that you better keep running.
Okay.
So, to get where I want to be.
Well, and a couple more questions, and we'll wrap it up. But what, so you talked about, I named it altruism, and so what's driving you in terms of impact, or is that driving you?
Oh man. Um, I feel like, again, I'm still driven by, if I can give somebody who is 19 to 25, if I can help them figure out a couple of things, right? That they are okay and they're going to be okay. If I can give them some tools like be more interested than interesting. If I can show them that, focus on being trusted more than being liked. If I can just give them some of that. And what I've loved is people reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's happened twice this week, where somebody young just graduated from college or 22, and they say, I just started in the insurance business or the commercial real estate business, and I read your columns and I read what you do, listen to your podcast. I love it. Can you give me some advice? And nothing makes my heart sing more than that.
Yeah,
And
cool.
I don't charge them for that. I tell them I charge people a lot of money so that I can give for free to the people that need it. And so that is what drives me. And when I can have a conversation with somebody, either that's a client of mine or not, and they can go, God, that makes sense. That makes my heart sing.
Yeah, that's
The
awesome.
best thing I can do for the world is what I feel like. That's my gift.
Very cool. All right, um, so who are those people that you charge a lot of money for, and what do you do for them?
Yeah. So I kind of have, I guess, 3 varieties of clients at this point. One are my one-on-one clients, that I work with them on retainer. And typically they're making probably $600,000 a year or more. And their goal is not necessarily make more money. It's how do I build a team, or how can I be more fulfilled? Again, not a life coach, a business guy that helps them see that. I also work with companies that have somewhere typically between 5 and 40 salespeople,
Okay.
where the owner, or the VP, is the company's probably privately owned. Maybe they're preparing to sell, but the owner or the CEO would be involved and they care about this. And the VP of sales is involved and cares about this. And I work with teams over, typical is probably 3 years on a regular basis, to help them change behavior and change mindset, hire better people, figure out who do we need to skim off and who do we keep going. But it's weekly or biweekly training with the sales team, and then also coaching management. And then the other group I work with are individuals. And they do everything from sell commercial insurance to commercial real estate to IT to any kind of other random wild things. They make somewhere between 50, the lowest paid one probably makes 50 grand. And we have classes twice a week for those guys. It's an ongoing program where they pay, and I want to make it affordable so that people can participate, and very, very easy to show up. And with those guys, we expect them, the ones that come and apply it get a 5x or way more return on the money and the time they spent. And typically they're hang around for, I guess I've got one that's probably the highest producer in that class. He's been around for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
The ones that do better typically stay around longer.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I talk too much about that,
They know,
but
they
yeah,
know that it works, so they keep doing it. All right. So
yeah,
where can people find you for those services?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm there every day. It's Walker McKay. My website is walkermckay.com. I have a podcast, the No BS Sales School podcast, which is everywhere you listen to podcasts. It's short episodes, 5 to 12 minutes, just me, no guests, sharing. I talk about things that actionable information you can go put to use. And then I also have a book called Some Will, Some Won't, So What, Who's Next, which is on Amazon or anywhere else you buy books. And that's a good way to learn more as well.
Cool. So you wrote this book during this time too?
I wrote the book, published in November. It took about 3 years, but that was kind of my latest thing. And I'm going to do the audio book here in the next month or two.
You've been busy. All right. So a quick recap, and just some things I noted. And first of all, it's amazing the stories I hear that they had support of men who had support from their wife, of like,
oh, impossible.
Right.
Without.
Right. And I think if you're going to do anything bold and courageous, which I would say that you did, like, you have to have support, 100% support from your wife. So I'd love to hear that. That's just a recurring theme that keeps popping up. I'm really intrigued too. You mentioned the brand story, Donald Miller, I think.
Story brand by Donald Miller. Yeah.
And story brand. Yeah. So, and I think he based a lot of that on the hero's journey.
Hero's journey. Yep.
But just this idea of these guides who come along. So I would tell our listeners, you did a beautiful job with this, is like, pay attention to the guides that come in your life, and that the words I don't know how it works or why it works. It just works.
And be open to listen to them, because as soon as you say, some people are afraid to admit they ever made a mistake. And if that's the way you are, that's going to make it really hard for you, because you're making mistakes like everybody else.
Yes. And then, and then I think you just have really done a beautiful job modeling the humility of, like, most of us have had pretty successful first halves, and it's like, well, this is not going to be very hard. I'll just walk away and I'll probably replace my income. When you start looking at, like, replacing, 150 grand, 250,000, 350, whatever nice 6-figure number it is, it's like, oh crap, this is a lot of work.
It's a lot.
It's a little harder. So
it's a long time to live too, I hope. I mean, it's a long time, even after I hope I'll probably live 20 years after I'm 70. Maybe I'll live 10. I'll probably live 20.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, take a long approach of view. Don't think you're going to be replacing income in 12 months. And it sounds like you really I know you're great at what you do. You're leaning into what you're good at and what you love. So I love to say, all right. So you said what'd you say is the 47-year-old?
The 47-year-old problem.
Okay. And
midlife
player. So what encouragement do you have? There are 47-year-olds listening to this right now who are feeling exactly what you felt. I guarantee it. What advice do you have for them?
First thing is, you're not stuck. You have lots of options. And be that, if you want to do what I did and go start your own firm, or your own, go work somewhere else, I think that there's other options everywhere. You can start your own business. You can go work for somebody else. You can change careers. You still have 20 years to work. Just remember, like when you were 22 and you said, I've been in this business for 4 years. I can't leave because, this is all I know. Shit, look how dumb that was. And one of the things I have come back to is I look at my life now. I used to look at it a long time was 2 years, and now it's a decade. And so look forward a decade if you're 47. And do you want to be 57 where you feel 10x what you feel right now? And make a decision. If you say openly, don't to live with this, don't let it eat you alive.
Yeah.
Find a way to find something you can get an outlet and feel good about yourself and take care of your family. But if it's eating you alive, figure it out. Do something else. Go pick another career, another firm, another company, another job. do it.
Yeah, life is too short to settle for that. I feel like that's the old retirement is like, oh, I just got to grind it out for 20 years and another 20 years. And the new retirement is like, you know what, I'm gonna retire to something, not from something. I'm gonna leave this past and go do what I want to do for the rest of my life and love it.
Yep.
So the 47-year-old problem, midlife clarity, TM or whatever, Walker McKay. Oscar, thank you so much for joining
Adam,
us
it's been
today.
great.
Thank you for sharing your story and living your story, taking the courage to live that story too. So I appreciate it. All right,
Thank
so
you.
Adam Landrum, another episode of Made to Matter. You can find us at madetomatter.coach, and we look forward to seeing you next time. All right, take care. Back,